Thanks everybody for joining us this afternoon. We are going to go over Bullying 101. In this particular presentation, Autumn will go over pressure and bullying. And we will have a session, Bullying Session 102 next month. So we will go over who Mission West Virginia is and a little bit about our programs. I'll tell you a little bit about our speaker, and then I will pass it over to Autumn. So who is Mission West Virginia? Um, so Mission West Virginia is leading a statewide effort to promote positive futures for all kids in West Virginia. We work alongside families to navigate the foster care system and provide evidence-based life skills education to our teens in middle and high schools. Our Frameworks program provides support for those interested in foster or adoption and kinship care in our state, and can kind of help walk people through the process of getting certified. If you're interested in foster care or adoption in the state of West Virginia, you can give us a call at 866-CALL-MWV, or you can request a packet of information online. Our Think program, which is the program who's actually hosting today's webinar, is our teen pregnancy prevention education program. So we empower teens to make positive life choices through education, life skills, and coaching. We provide evidence-based education that helps the students we work with to navigate the social emotional pressures that they deal with every day. Help them to make healthier life choices, meet their goals, build healthier relationships, and avoid all those tricky things that we don't want them to do. We deliver our program in partnership with two partners in our state to around 20 counties in the state of West Virginia out of 55. We hold workshops and trainings like the one you're at today. We will talk to you or offer trainings on talking to youth about sensitive or hard topics. We do hidden in plain sight trainings, trauma trainings, sexual assault and prevention and consent, teen dating violence, and like a whole host of other things. Today's webinar is providing social work CEUs. Our social work providership, I guess that's what you call it, social work providership. Our certification to be a social work provider just came through. So we now have our own license number. So that's super exciting. Social workers will get 1.5 contact hours for this training. You do have to be attending the live session to receive those credit hours. A survey link will be put in the chat and emailed afterwards. Fill out that survey and I'll get you your CEU certificate within the next 3 days. And Autumn, Miss Autumn is our presenter today. Autumn is our youth support liaison at Mission, and she has a bachelor's and a master's in social work from the University of Akron and at LICSW in West Virginia. Autumn works closely with students who identify a need for resources or community referrals. She provides education on tons of different topics and acts as kind of a mentor or a bridge of support for students who need a trusted adult to speak with. Autumn, I will pass it over to you.
All right, thank you. So before I get started, first, I just want to thank everybody for joining. One of my favorite things when I do webinars is I love looking at the chat and seeing all the different people that join these that come from different backgrounds, different experiences. But, it just kind of feels like this camaraderie because it's like we're all here for a certain reason, because we know that our youth are really struggling. They're struggling with so many different things, but we also know that bullying is such a big issue. Um, you know, when I was in school, yes, there was bullying, but it's like it's just gone to a whole different level than what I experienced when I was younger. So I'm glad that all of you are here to learn kind of the basics of what bullying is, what does it look like, how can we address these situations if we run into it, and we'll talk about suicidal risks as well. So I'm going to be turning my camera off. I'm actually in Ohio right now. I came up to visit my family. And so I'm pretty sure Ohio has better Wi-Fi service and internet service than West Virginia. I always struggle with internet in West Virginia, but just in case, I don't know what the bandwidth is like here, and I don't want to just like get booted off.
Hey, Autumn, before you move
Yes.
too far, I saw somebody say that you're a little staticky, so maybe turning off the camera will help. I just wanted to make sure there was
Okay.
nobody else having issues. If you're having issues, go ahead and drop that in the chat and we'll try to see what we can do.
Okay. So let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. So we will, oh, sorry, trying to, here we go. All right, so moving into what is bullying. Everybody has different thoughts and opinions and ideas on what they think bullying is. But these are definitions that I found through resources like through the CDC, stopbullying.gov. But bullying is really any unwanted aggressive behavior. And what's really important to know is that bullying involves this imbalance of power where a person feels that they are superior or more powerful than another person. And that is, can be tricky because sometimes, when we have two people that are in a disagreement or they have conflict, it doesn't mean that that's what bullying is. It's really about this perceived balance of power. So the power or that imbalance of power can be used in different ways when bullying is done. So it can be in terms of somebody having physical strength, if they have access to embarrassing information, which we all know that our kids, with social media, they have access to all of that. And, we always like to educate our kids and youth and be mindful about what they are posting on social media. But sometimes, they have that teen brain and that part of their brain that allows them to think things through is not really fully developed until they're 21 years old. So it's very common for kids to post things online and not understand how that may impact them or other people. It could be popularity. So we do know that schools and, in the classrooms, it can be very cliquey. So those students who are perceived to be popular may use that as that power to bully and control other students, and also to control or harm others. This imbalance of power, it can change over time. So a person may use their physical strength to overpower another student or another youth. And then maybe if they're popular, they may use that to their advantage as well. So if they are using a certain type of imbalance of power, it can change over time and in different situations, even if it involves the same people that they are bullying over and over. And that's one thing too to remember that with bullying, this is behavior that's repeated over time or has the potential to be repeated. And those who are bullied and those who bully others have serious, long lasting problems. We're starting to see this more and more, and they're actually doing more research on youth that are perceived to be the ones that are bullying, because we always have this idea that, they think they're better than everybody else. They have a picture perfect life, no issues, no problems, no mental health problems. But we are finding that that is not the case at all. So we also have different types of bullying. So we have our verbal bullying. So this would be saying or writing mean things. It could be teasing somebody, calling them names, making inappropriate sexual comments. And I've actually had to do presentations on sexual harassment to middle school students because, some schools are really struggling, when it comes to sexual harassment because they don't understand that what they are saying and doing is inappropriate and can also be not only a form of harassment, but also a form of bullying, taunting others, or making threats to cause harm. We also have social bullying. This can also be called relational bullying, but really this just involves hurting somebody's reputation or their relationships. So it may be leaving somebody out on purpose to make them feel bad about themselves or to make them feel embarrassed. It could be telling others not to be friends with someone. And I've seen this a lot with new students that come to a new school. They may start befriending someone, and a group will say, don't hang out with them. They're losers, they're weird, they're whatever. So I see that a lot with students that are new to a school. It could be spreading rumors about other people or embarrassing them in public. We also have physical. This involves hurting a person's body or their possessions. It could be hitting them, pinching them, or kicking, spitting on them, tripping or pushing them. It could be taking their personal belongings and breaking them, or also making mean or rude hand gestures. And then we have cyberbullying. Cyberbullying has just definitely taken over since social media has become more popular over the years. But cyberbullying can take place over any type of digital device. So this could be your cell phones, computers, tablets. It could be through text messages, different apps, social media, different meeting forums, and also gaming as well. With cyberbullying, people can send, post, or share negative, harmful, or false or mean content about a person. They may share personal or private information about somebody to make them feel embarrassed or humiliated. And also, too, some cyberbullying may cross that line into unlawful or criminal behavior. Because social media is more new, within the last, 10, 15 years, there really was never any laws put into place. And so they are becoming a lot better at creating some laws where cyberbullying could be considered a criminal act. And it's just one of those things you kind of have to look at each state because each state has different laws when it comes to cyberbullying. So, where we look on social media where people are cyberbullied, Twitter has 9%, which is not Twitter anymore. I don't remember what it's called. I don't get on Twitter. So, but I'm not surprised by that just because Twitter doesn't seem to be a popular app that my youth use. YouTube, 10% of youth have experienced bullying. WhatsApp, 12% have experienced bullying. And if you're not familiar with WhatsApp, it's just like a messaging app. So people can text, you can video chat. And a lot of kids use this because if they have family that are checking their text messages, they may not necessarily see anything wrong or harmful because everything could be going through this WhatsApp. And when it's through an app, if you were to ask, go to your cell phone company and ask for like a printout of like messages and phone calls, that stuff is not going to show up since the messaging is through an app itself and not through the phone. Snapchat, 31% have experienced bullying. Facebook was at 37%. That one surprised me a little bit because my youth like to tell me that Facebook is for old people. So I know a lot of my youth don't use Facebook, but again, that's just the ones that I've worked with and talked with. And then our biggest one is Instagram at 42%. So when we look at issues that kids experience when they experience that cyberbullying, as you can see here, kids that are experiencing cyberbullying are not doing so well. They're experiencing a lot of, adverse effects from that bullying. So 9% of kids started abusing alcohol or drugs. They may use that as a way of coping. They may do it as a form, maybe if they were peer pressured, maybe they're being made fun of because they don't engage in, alcohol or drugs like popular kids do or other people do. So they may start to do that as a way to try to fit in with certain people. 14% developed an eating disorder. We know that on social media, people are posting things, that kind of depict what a person should look like. You're only deemed beautiful or handsome or good looking or attractive if you look a certain way or you have a certain shape and size of body. And a lot of our young people don't understand that the things that people are posting online aren't real. They can't identify that there's filters being used or that the people that look a certain way have had procedures done. They've had Botox, they've had fillers, plastic surgery, but they don't come clean about that. So it's very easy for our young people to start engaging in disordered eating habits if they are struggling with their own self image and they see all of this stuff on social media. 20% started skipping class. 24% stopped using social media altogether. And although that doesn't sound like a really like not a bad thing, we have to remember this is how our youth are connecting with one another, with their peers, with their friends. And so the one thing we don't want them to do is to completely disengage because that could lead them to start isolating themselves, which then can in turn create further issues for them. 25% engaged in self-harm. 26% deleted their social media profiles. Again, that may not necessarily seem bad, but this is how our youth are connecting. And we, definitely don't want them to not be on it. If it's a healthy way for them to connect with their peers and their friends. But, one thing I always tell my students is, it's okay to take a break. You don't necessarily have to delete it or get off of it altogether. But, if it's bothering you or if it's overwhelming you, just take that break. There's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. 26% of youth develop suicidal thoughts, 37% develop depression, and 41% develop social anxiety. So we can see that the effects for our youth that are experiencing cyberbullying is definitely having a negative impact. So when we look at who is at risk for being bullied, unfortunately, bullying doesn't discriminate and it can happen to anybody. It can happen to people that are in the popular crowd. It can happen to a person regardless of their age, their gender, race, sexual orientation, their socioeconomic status, religion. But with research, they have found that there are groups that are at a higher risk for bullying. So any person that has any type of disability, typically like a physical disability, that puts them at risk to experience bullying. Gender can also play a role. How a person identifies and when we look at, gender, if we're looking at just genders of males and females, it is more common for males to engage in physical bullying, and with females, it is more common to engage in cyberbullying. Poverty or social status. So again, if a youth is, coming from a household that is struggling financially and they're living in poverty, they may not, have the means to buy the clothes that is popular that other people are wearing, or, getting the name brand shoes or different things like that. Ethnic, linguistic, or cultural differences. So this would be migrants or anybody that is of a refugee status. So they may experience bullying, especially I saw this definitely increase after 9/11. After 9/11 happened, there just seemed to be a huge increase in bullying behaviors towards anybody that, was of that ethnic or cultural background from the people that did 9/11. Physical parents also plays a huge role. So youth that appear different from other people, if they look different, if they have a certain shape and size of their body or their weight. And this doesn't just happen to people that are overweight. This can happen to people who are underweight as well. And then also individuals that identify as part of the LGBTQIA are also at a higher risk for experiencing bullying. They're also at a high risk for a multitude of things. So that can definitely put them at risk to experience any type of bullying. If they identify, if they have a different gender that they identify with or their sexual orientation. So the youth that are at risk for bullying, they're looked at as being different from their peers, again, such as the way that they look, what they're wearing, if they're new to a school, or not being able to afford what youth consider as cool, if they're perceived as weak or unable to defend themselves, if they're experiencing depression, anxiety, or if they have a low self-esteem, if they are less popular than others, or if they have few friends. And one thing I always tell my kids when it comes to friends, it's always about the quality and not the quantity. I think for some reason I can remember back in school, it was like the more friends you had, the better you were, or you were perceived as being somebody popular. And now that I'm an adult, I'm like, the less people, the better. It's less drama. But that's just one thing, I tell my youth. They say, well, I only have one or two friends. And honestly, that's okay. As long as they are respectful and, treat them good and they're a true good friend. I always say it's about the quality of that friendship and not based on how many friends you have. If there are students that don't get along well with other people, sometimes they may do things or have behaviors that come off as being annoying, or they're just trying to get attention from other people. Those youth are also at risk for bullying. So, youth that are more likely to bully others. So, again, when we look at a person who bullies, sometimes we have had these, we've seen things on TV and social media, but it's just like when we looked at who is more likely to be bullied. A person can be a bully, it could be anybody. That also does not discriminate as well. But there are two types of youth who are more likely to bully other people. So, again, those who are well connected to their peers, they have that social power or that social status. If they are overly concerned about their popularity, so if being popular and having everybody like them is their goal, that is kind of their priority, they may be more likely to bully other people and those that like to dominate or be in charge of others. So, again, bullying is about this power and control over another person. So, if somebody has those personality traits where they like to be in control or they like to dominate over other people, that can put them at risk to bully others. And then we also have the opposite. So other youth that are more likely to bully. So instead of being, popular and having the social power, they may isolate themselves more from their peers. They may be experiencing mental health problems such as depression, anxiety, or have that low self-esteem. They may be less involved in school. They may be easily pressured by their peers and they may have trouble identifying with the emotions or feelings of others. So they have a really hard time feeling empathy for other people in those situations. So this type, we've heard more about this type in the media, unfortunately, when it comes to like school shootings, and also just more recently with the assassination attempt, they're starting to come out and saying, oh, well, he was bullied in high school, and other people said that he wasn't. But they identified him as being a loner and isolating himself from others. So not all people or youth that are in this category as being less involved or more isolated turn out to, turn to shooting or other behaviors like that. But it's just difficult because that's what media has portrayed, youth that have been involved in some type of violence towards their peers. So, other factors with youth that are more likely to bully, if they are aggressive or if they become easily frustrated. And that one can be tricky too, because we have the teen hormones that are taking place. Their bodies are going through so many different changes, and we may see more aggression, especially with youth that identify as males. So that can also be a trigger if they have less parental involvement or if they're having issues at home. So again, we think, well, the person that's bullying may have this picture perfect life because they feel that they're better than everybody else. But in more situations that I've experienced, the youth that has been doing the bullying, they have a lot of problems going on at home. And sometimes they may turn to those aggressive behaviors and bullying as a way of coping or to feel that they have a sense of control. Because if they don't feel like they have a sense of control in their home life, they're going to want to try to find a sense of control in something else. Because no matter how young or old you are, we all like to feel as though we have a sense of control over our own lives. And when we feel like we've lost that, we will try to find other ways to gain that back. If they think badly of other people, so if they just always have negative thoughts about everybody else, if they have troubles following rules, if they view violence in a positive way. And we may see this with youth who have grown up witnessing or experiencing violence. Sometimes that's all that they know. And not that I'm trying to make excuses for bullying behavior, but we do have to keep in mind that sometimes our youth are experiencing or have experienced a lot of trauma, and this is kind of what it's turned into. And then those who have friends who bully other people. So again, you're going to have that peer pressure with a group. If you have one or two people in that group that are bullying others, it's going to put pressure on them to join in as well because they are going to have that fear. Well, if I don't do this, they may kick me out, and then I may be subjected to bullying. So that peer pressure is definitely real when it comes to bullying people. So when we look at signs that a youth is being bullied, so if they're having unexplained injuries, they have scratches or bruises or scrapes, and they always have an excuse. I tripped and fell, or I ran into the corner of something, or my cat or dog scratched me. So they just always have these injuries, and they never really have like a real explanation for it. It just always seems to be excuses. If you are finding that their belongings are, they say, I've lost something, and that's happened multiple times, or if they are coming with things that have been destroyed. So if their clothes have been ripped or torn, books, electronics, jewelry, any of their belongings that have been destroyed can be a sign. If they start having psychosomatic complaints. So, psychosomatic complaints is when a person is experiencing physiological symptoms, but there really is no reason for them to experience that. So, if they are complaining of frequent headaches, their stomach is always hurting them, or they always say they feel sick, or maybe they're faking sick so they don't have to go to school. Or if it's that student that is in the nurse's office day in and day out complaining of something, and maybe they've gone to the doctor and they've done testing, they've done blood work, and everything has come back, normal. So that can also be a sign that they're experiencing bullying. They may have changes in their eating habits, especially if they're being made fun of because of the way that they look or the shape and size of their body. So if they are being made fun of because of their weight, if they're, being called fat or, something like that, they may all of a sudden start skipping meals. or they may binge eat. So that binge eating can happen as a way of coping, or it could be because they've skipped meals and they're so hungry that they will binge eat. Or if they're being made fun of because they're underweight, they may binge eat, to try to gain some weight. Some youth may come home hungry, like I had mentioned, because they didn't eat lunch. If people are stealing their money or, their lunches or different things like that. They may have issues with sleep. So they may have trouble sleeping or they may experience nightmares about the bullying that's happened. There could be a change with school. So maybe they were getting decent grades. Now, all of a sudden, their grades have significantly declined. They may have a loss of interest in school. So nothing excites them or makes them feel good about going to school, or they just keep saying, I don't want to go. They may start to also remove themselves from extracurricular activities that they once loved to do. They could have a sudden loss of friends. And so this could be, I've seen this a lot where if you have a youth that is constantly being harassed and bullied over and over again, and they're with this group of friends, sometimes those friends will kind of kick them out of the group because they don't want to be subjected to getting bullied or anything at all. Because they look at it as, okay, well, if I'm associated with you, then I may be getting bullied next. They can also avoid any type of social situation. They may express feelings of hopelessness or have a decreased self esteem. And they may engage in self destructive or high risk behaviors, such as running away from home. They may engage in self harm as a way of coping, or they may start talking about suicide or having suicidal thoughts. So, looking at signs that a youth may be bullying other people. So one thing to keep in mind too are these signs. Just because a youth is experiencing that does not always mean that they are getting bullied or somebody is bullying or being a bully. But those who are in one of those categories, these are signs that they are most likely to show. So if they're getting into physical or verbal fights, I'm not talking about like at once every now and then, but if it's just almost every day, you're having issues or situations with them getting into fights or verbal fights. If they have friends who are bullying other people, if they're increasingly aggressive or get sent to the principal's office or they get detention or in school suspension frequently, if all of a sudden they now have extra money and you know that they didn't do anything to work for that money or that you didn't give them money, and they can't tell you how they got that money, or they now have new possessions or belongings that you never bought for them, or anybody else did. Another is that they will blame others for their problems. Those who are bullying others do not take responsibility for their own behaviors. They will always point the finger at the other person. They are always going to say it was their fault. Well, if they wouldn't have done this, or if they, would have done this, and, they make excuses all the time. And then those who are competitive, and if they are extremely worried about their reputation or their popularity, sometimes that is what fuels them to continue to engage in bullying behaviors because their reputation is priority when it comes to school, and they want to make sure that they can uphold that reputation. So these are just some quick facts and percentages when we look at bullying. I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but the one that's in with the Black background, that these are facts on cyberbullying. But it just goes to show you that our youth are really experiencing cyberbullying. But nearly 43% of kids have been bullied online. 1 in 4 has had it happen more than once. 70% of students report seeing frequent bullying online. 80% of teens use a cell phone regularly, so it makes it the most common medium for cyberbullying. Again, they are attached to their phones. That is their way of communicating and connecting with other people. So they are going to witness and possibly experience a lot of cyberbullying. 68% of teens agree that cyberbullying is a serious problem. And I love that number. I wish that number was higher because I think we can all agree that cyberbullying is a serious problem. Um, you know, but 68% is a decent number. But still, it's like we just have so many more people that engage in cyberbullying. So just another couple of quick facts about bullying in general. 160,000 teens skip school every day because of bullying, and fears of it escalating or getting worse or just not wanting to deal with it. 24% of youth don't know what they would do if they were harassed or bullied online. One in three report being bullied during the school year. Every 7 minutes, a child is being bullied. 85% of bullying cases receive no intervention. And 67% of students believe schools respond poorly to bullying. I've seen a lot of schools having trouble, trying to figure out a way to address the situation. It's not a simple fix. And, that's one of the things that makes it really challenging. If it was a simple fix, then we wouldn't have the issues that we do have with bullying. And sometimes people just, maybe some people don't care. They don't think it's a big deal. But a lot of times people just are unsure how to address the problem or the situation. So, looking at how bullying impacts our youth. So, youth who are experiencing bullying, they're going to have feelings of depression, anxiety. They're going to feel very lonely, changes in their sleep and eating patterns, a loss of interest in activities that they used to enjoy doing. Again, we have those psychosomatic complaints. So, they're always going to be complaining of headaches or stomach problems or just overall feeling unwell. They're going to have decreased academic achievement and school participation, and they are more likely to miss school, skip, or even drop out of school. A very small number of bullied children might retaliate through extremely violent measures. However, in 12 of the 15 school shooting cases in the 90s, the shooters did have a history of being bullied, which is, although it's a very small number, 12 out of the last 15, that's pretty significant. But again, not all youth who experience bullying are going to retaliate through violent behaviors. So youth who bully other people, like I had mentioned in the beginning, this can definitely have a negative impact on them as well. So they may engage in violent and other high-risk behaviors into adulthood, or abuse drugs and alcohol as a teen that then, kind of goes with them as they become an adult. They may get into fights, vandalize property, or drop out of school. They're at risk for engaging in early sexual activity or high risk sexual behaviors. They may have criminal convictions and traffic citations as adults, and then they may become abusive towards their romantic partners, spouses, or children as they grow older. And as I said earlier, especially for youth, if they grew up in this type of environment where they were exposed to violence, again, if they haven't learned other ways to, it, to deal with emotions, it's really hard for them to figure that out themselves. If they grew up in that, that's what they see is the proper way to handle situations. So one thing I do talk to the kids about is when we say, what does a bully look like? Because again, in TV shows and movies and media, it was always the football player or the popular person, the person that was deemed attractive. But it can be anybody. It doesn't matter what they look like or what they are doing, in their social life or how many friends they have or don't have. So I always make sure that, I discuss this with my kids because sometimes youth just have this idea of what a bully looks like. So they may not necessarily know that they're getting bullied by other people if they have this mindset that, well, they're not popular, so they can't be a bully. So it's just important to educate the kids and let them know that a person that's bullying others can be anybody. We also need to keep in mind too is bystanders. So youth who are witnessing bullying are also at risk for having negative impacts on them. They may have increased use of tobacco, alcohol, and other drugs. And they can also experience depression and anxiety, and they may miss or skip school. So, especially if a student doesn't like confrontation, if they, are experiencing or witnessing those things. Also, too, if those youth are experiencing, bullying behaviors or, witnessing violence in their homes, witnessing this in school can definitely be a trigger for them. And so it can lead to them abusing drugs and alcohol as a way of coping, or also developing depression or anxiety. So we have to keep in mind and remember just because a youth may not be experiencing bullying directly or they're not directly bullying other people, it doesn't mean that they're okay and that they're not being impacted by this. So, looking at the relationship between bullying and suicide. So, a lot of times people think that bullying is a direct correlation to suicide. But it's important to know that youth who are being bullied are at a higher risk of suicide, but bullying alone does not cause suicide. There are typically other issues that contribute to that suicidal risk that youth is experiencing. Now, like for example, the first one, depression and other mental health problems. So they may have been okay mentally and emotionally prior to experiencing bullying. So bullying does play a huge role in suicide and suicidal thoughts, but it's because the bullying may be causing some of these other issues, such as the development of depression and other mental health problems. But some other risk factors too, if they're experiencing problems at home, if they have a history of trauma. 100% of the youth that I work with all have very significant trauma past, and so it's just a lot of our youth that I have noticed in West Virginia have experienced a lot of trauma. If they are engaging in alcohol or drug use, if they've had a recent or serious loss. So, if it's been the death of a loved one, a friend, a pet, someone significant to them, if their parents have split up or have gotten a divorce, also the end of a romantic relationship, and not just a romantic relationship, but also a friendship. So, if a youth is experiencing bullying and they only have a few friends, they're already not feeling good about themselves, but at least they have those two friends. But if those two friends walk away from them, then that's going to really put them in a seriously bad place. So that lack of social support, if they don't feel as though anybody is there to support them, whether it's family, friends, people at school, when they're experiencing that bullying, you can kind of see how all of this can kind of go together. And then we also have that stigma associated with asking for help. So we know that youth sometimes have a hard time reaching out for help when they're experiencing bullying because they don't want to appear, weak, or maybe they're embarrassed or they're ashamed that they're being made fun of or being bullied. But also too, they may be worried that if they ask for help, is that going to increase the bullying, especially if the person bullying them finds out. So there are lots of barriers that stop youth from reaching out and asking for help. I've also encountered students who have gone to adults in the schools, because they have been experiencing bullying. And, when a person in the school tells them that they're not being bullied, that they're just being a tattletale, that really makes it a big problem. So, just feeling that lack of support from anybody can really push them towards experiencing those suicidal thoughts and possibly suicide attempts. So 1 in 6 victims of any type of bullying have attempted suicide. So this slide has pictures of all of these beautiful kids. And so I kind of like researched and, was looking online. And I honestly, the stories that I found, I probably could fill another 2 or 3 slides of more pictures of kids. But these are all sweet, innocent kids that have died by suicide, and all of them were experiencing bullying. And as you can see, we have a mix of different people, different genders, different, cultural backgrounds, and also ages. I think the youngest one, it was either this guy right here or this one. They were 7 or 8 years old when they took their own life. And so experiencing, and listening to these stories and reading about it, it's very heartbreaking. But I also think too, it also shows how real the impact is when it comes to bullying. And so I just think it's important that, we are honoring all of these sweet kids that unfortunately took their life because they felt that was their only way out to escape the situation that they were in. So when we look at suicide, I hear this so often when somebody has attempted or died by suicide, they say, I never saw it coming, or they didn't say anything or do anything. But the truth is 4 out of 5 teens actually do display red flags when they are thinking about suicide. It's just very hard to miss it because they're not always throwing it out there when they're displaying these red flags. It's not very apparent or obvious. And other times, too, when people don't know what red flags to look out for, it's really hard to identify it. So, some of the red flags of suicide, if they are talking about wanting to die, or they're talking about just feeling guilty or ashamed of themselves, or they feel as though that they're just a burden to other people. One thing I tell my teens, because this just always seems to be kind of like a joke with a lot of my youth. They, like if something happens, like say they failed a test, they will jokingly say, like, I'm going to kill myself. And so I have to have so many conversations with them that we can't be joking about those things. For example, one of my students had written a note to um, their boyfriend, and they jokingly said in there, because they did something in school, and they jokingly said, I'm going to kill myself. Well, the boyfriend had been out of school for a doctor's appointment. And when he went to the office to turn in his excuse slip, he accidentally put that letter in the little mailbox. And, you know, I'm so happy though for this school because they saw that note and they immediately addressed it with my student. She was really mad, about, they were like, why would they talk to me about this? And so I had to have that conversation and educate her, that we have to be cautious of what we say because, we may think somebody's joking, but we can't take that chance. We have to make sure that each and every one is okay or safe and have those protective factors if they are making any type of comment about wanting to die. So, some feelings that they may experience, they may feel empty or hopeless inside. They may feel trapped. So, they may feel that there's no light at the end of the tunnel, that there's no other way to escape their situation other than suicide. Or they may feel that they have no reason left to live. They can have extreme sadness or be anxious, or they can also be very agitated or rageful. And then they may also feel this unbearable emotional or physical pain. And then also changes in their behaviors. So they may start making a plan or start researching ways to die. Um, that's one of the many things that I really hate about the internet is anything you want to look up or you want information on, even if it has to do with, the pain, the most painless way to die, or the best way to kill yourself, or anything like that, it's going to be on the internet. And so they do have access to be able to research those ways. They may start withdrawing from friends, or start giving away things that are important to them or their belongings. So they may just give it to somebody and say, hey, I just want you to have this. They may engage in dangerous and risky behaviors. So, when a person is feeling suicidal, it can be common for them to engage in these types of behaviors because they don't care. They could care less if they live or die. And so they may engage in those behaviors, as a way of coping to release these emotions. But in turn, it could also hurt them in the long end. They may have extreme mood swings, and that can be kind of hard to decipher when it comes to a teenager. We know teens are moody. I know when I was a teen, I was super moody. I'd be okay one minute, the next minute, everybody watch out. Here comes Autumn stomping her feet. And sometimes we just think, okay, it's teen angst. They're just being a teenager. But you always want to keep in mind that if they are exhibiting these extreme mood swings, just kind of be, err on this side of caution, and maybe take them in to see a doctor, or maybe to get some testing to see, what's really going on. Changes in their sleep and appetite, and then also using drugs and alcohol more often. Um, People are more likely to follow through with a suicide attempt when they are under the influence. It impairs their ability to think things through. Their inhibition is gone, and so they are more likely to follow through with those plans or thoughts. And actually, most people that do die by suicide will have alcohol and or drugs in their system. So, how can we prevent youth suicide? It is so important that we are addressing depression and anxiety and other mental health issues. I've had lots and lots of kids that say they were raised in households where they weren't allowed to talk about their feelings or their emotions, or mental health, because maybe their family was raised in that type of environment. But we have to start talking about it. If we are pretending it's not a real thing, or we're just brushing it under the rug, or we refuse to address it for whatever reason, we are doing nothing to help those kids. So if you notice that a youth is sad or anxious, or it just seems like they're struggling, make sure you ask them what's wrong. We should not wait around for them to come to us first, because I had mentioned earlier, our youth experience so many barriers for them to reach out for help for lots of different reasons. So if you are concerned, make sure you just go to them first and ask them what's going on, and let them know that, hey, I've noticed these changes in you. We also want to pay attention. So, if a youth is thinking about suicide, they're most likely showing some of those warning signs. So, we want to listen to what they're saying and watch how they're acting. And again, we never want to shrug off threats of suicide as them being dramatic or that teen angst. Or even if they say, oh, I was just joking, we never want to shrug that off. We want to discourage isolation. Again, when a person or a youth is having those suicidal thoughts, it's very common for them to isolate themselves. And that only makes it worse, because when they are isolating themselves, they are more inside of their heads. And that can make depression worse, anxiety worse. It can make those suicidal thoughts worse. So if you notice that they are isolating themselves, try to encourage them to spend more time with good friends and family. We also want to support the treatment plan. So, if a youth is already having treatment for suicidal behavior or mental health problems, we need to remind them that it's going to take time for them to feel better. We are such a we live in such a world where everything is instant, everything happens quickly. And especially when we're experiencing mental health issues or suicidal thoughts, we want to be better now. I don't want to wait weeks or months or years to feel better. I need to feel better now. But unfortunately, when it comes to treatment for mental health and suicidal thoughts, that is not going to be fixed over time. So we just have to kind of remind them that it's going to be a process, but make sure that you're providing them that support, and encouraging them, to continue with that treatment, so that, over time they can start to feel better. And then also, if there are firearms, alcohol, or medications, anything that could be a means to suicide attempts, please make sure that those are stored safely. So, locking up alcohol and medications, firearms, you could put, if it's in like a safe, making sure the safe is locked and that they don't have the codes for that. Or you can also get locks for a gun. And you can actually get those through, what is it? Um, it's I think, Hope for WV. I'll have to I can't remember, but
Prevent Suicide, West Virginia.
thank you. Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
I don't know where I got hope at. I don't know. It sounded good, so I made it up. But it is West Virginia Prevent Suicide. They do have locks that you can get for free to put on your, firearms so that people can use them. So, what do we do if a youth is suicidal? Sometimes we go into panic mode because we feel like it's our responsibility to make sure that they remain safe. And maybe we haven't had that experience of working with a youth who has openly said, yes, I'm struggling with suicide. So one thing that is really important to keep in mind, it is absolutely okay to ask youth if they have had thoughts or had a plan or intent to complete suicide, whether that was in the past, if it's currently, or something that happened recently. I can't tell you the amount of people that I have run into just in my line of work that truly believe you can't say the word suicide to kids because we're putting that idea in their head. However, we do not have that kind of power to put those thoughts into youth's minds when it comes to suicide. So it is absolutely okay to ask them, if they are experiencing that. And, if they are struggling, one thing that is important is trying to find those protective factors. So asking them what they have in their life that they feel is worth living for. This could be anything. It could be friends, families, pets. It could be a romantic partner, values and morals. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as they have something that stops them from acting out on those thoughts and behaviors. And the other thing too that you can do is if you are concerned that a youth is in immediate danger with suicide, you can call 911 or you can call the suicide prevention hotline, which is 988. And then if you work in a school setting, you can refer to the school counselor or social worker to follow through and maybe assess further their suicidality, or whatever policy that school may have in place if a student says, yes, I'm experiencing suicidal thoughts. So after you have that better understanding of how the youth is feeling, it is so important to offer your emotional support. And truthfully, you may be the only person that they have that's showing them that emotional support. And you actually may be their protective factor. So it's important to make sure that we are continuing that emotional support. We want to validate them when they, make comments about suicide, by telling them like, oh, that's selfish, or, that is just putting that negative stigma on it. So we want to validate them. I understand that this sounds hard and it sounds like you've given up. Validating them can make them feel more heard. Let them know that you're deeply concerned about their well-being. And also let them know that you don't want them to hurt themselves and that you will do what you can to help them keep them safe. You can gently inform them that suicide is not a solution. But again, you can validate in that same sentence, I understand, or I hear you say that you are going through this, and I can't imagine how difficult this is for you. But we don't want them to think that suicide is the only option for them. And provide reassurance for the youth. Let them know that you're going to do whatever it takes to get them through this. Because again, you may be the only adult in their life that is stopping them from following through with their thoughts of suicide. So, looking at ways that we can address bullying, because again, this seems to be a pretty challenging thing. And that's not just here in West Virginia, this is nationwide. It's really challenging, to stop bullying altogether. But some ways that we can do to address it and maybe help to decrease the problem. But youth who know what bullying is can better identify it. So, education to our youth on what bullying looks like, what it is, um, they are more likely to identify those bullying behaviors and they may be more open to getting help for themselves or also being a bystander that is getting help for somebody that they see that's experiencing bullying. Encourage you to speak to a safe adult. That is going to be so important. That safe adult can be anybody, but it's important that you are the adult that isn't going to tell them that they are being dramatic or they're being a tattletale or they're just trying to create drama. If you are seen as that safe adult and they come to you and say they're being bullied, we need to make sure that we are listening to them and we are validating them. Try to encourage others to help people that they see are being bullied or showing kindness or getting help. Sometimes we have to be cautious about, encouraging them to help others when they're seeing bullying because we definitely don't want to create more issues. We don't want more fights to happen, for a student that's sticking up for another student. So I think just by, educating them on just showing kindness, or the safest way for them to get help if they see that a youth is being bullied is important. And believe it or not, youth actually look up to adults for advice, and help on difficult situations. Although we sometimes think they don't care what we have to say, they really do. They really do look up to us for advice. So it's important to keep that in mind that they do care about what you have to say. Spending 15 minutes a day talking can reassure youth that they can talk to adults if they have a problem. And these types of conversations can happen anywhere. It can happen in school. So if it's a math class, just spending 10 or 15 minutes a day talking about these things with bullying can be shown to decrease bullying behavior. So some of those questions may be, what does bullying mean to you? Why do you think people bully? Who are adults you feel safe going to when it comes to bullying? What do you usually do when you see bullying going on? And have you ever seen kids at your school being bullied and how did it make you feel? So this is just a really great way to start that conversation when it comes to addressing bullying. And again, these conversations can happen anywhere. It doesn't have to be a 2-hour conversation. It literally just taking 10 to 15 minutes to discuss this and talking to them about it. It can be a really great educational tool to teach them on what bullying looks like and what to do if you are experiencing it or if you know somebody who is. So, looking at youth and ways that we can support them who are being bullied. Again, we really want to listen and focus on the youth. Don't be calling them out, making them feel bad for going to an adult because they're experiencing bullying. So, we also need to make sure that the youth knows that the bullying is not their fault. A lot of youth who are experiencing bullying will blame themselves. And it could be because of that low self-esteem, but it could also be because the person bullying them has made all of these negative comments and it's just kind of stuck in their head. So now they believe everything that's being told to them. So we want to make sure that they know that if they're experiencing bullying, it is absolutely not their fault. Even if they were acting a certain way that may have aggravated or annoyed other people, they need to know that it's not their fault. Know that youth who are being bullied are going to struggle talking about it. So you want to consider referring them to the school counselor, social worker, or any other type of mental health service. And also work together to resolve the situation and to help protect that youth who's experiencing bullying. Ask that youth what can be done to make them feel safe. and whatever that is, saying what can be done to make you feel safer. Changes to their routine should be minimized. I've seen this a lot in schools. If a youth is experiencing bullying, the one that's experiencing the bullying will have like their whole schedule changed. So they're in places to stay away from the person bullying them. But when you are changing their routine, it's almost as if they're being punished, because they're experiencing bullying. So if the youth that's experiencing bullying, their routine should, or changes to their routine should definitely be minimized. We also want to develop a game plan and maintain open communication between schools, organizations, and parents. Be persistent and consistently support that youth and make sure you're following up with them to make sure that they're doing okay, or if things are escalating. So some common mistakes to avoid. Never tell the youth to ignore the bullying. That doesn't help. Especially if it's verbal bullying, they're constantly saying things. It's not easy to keep that stuff out of their mind. The longer that they hear that, they're going to identify themselves with the things that are being told to them. So we don't want them to just completely ignore that. That's easier said than done. So, and also don't tell the person bullying them, to make a joke out of the situation or just say, don't let it bother you. Because again, that's just easier said than done. Don't force youth involved to work things out or make them apologize to one another and shake hands. I see this happen a lot where they have the person who is bullying with the person that they are bullying. They kind of get them together in a room and make them apologize to one another, shake hands, and then they're supposed to be best friends. That is not going to resolve the situation. And actually, it can cause further victimization and cause an escalation in the bullying situation. Again, we don't want to blame the youth for being bullied, even if they provoked the bullying. Nobody ever asked to be bullied. So we want to make sure that we're not pointing the finger at them. Don't tell the youth to physically fight back against the person bullying. It could get that child hurt. They could get suspended or expelled. I've had a lot of kids where they will say, well, my parents said I need to fight back. Or as long as I didn't, make the first punch. And I understand that because we would want our kids to be able to stick up for themselves, but there are healthier ways that they can do that than fighting back. A really good example of why this is not a good idea. So I had a student that was experiencing extreme bullying and harassment and stalking. This student that was bullying the student I was working with would drive in front of their house and take pictures of my student's house and send it to them via Snapchat. Or they would go to their mom's job and sit in the parking lot and take pictures of where my student's mom worked to send to them. Just constant harassment, bullying. And then the student threatened my student and sent them a message and said, as soon as I see you, I'm going to fight you. And then they started making threats towards my student's siblings, which the siblings had nothing to do with the situation. So they're at school, and my student saw this other student. And so my student hit the other student and beat them up good. They had to go to the hospital and get stitches. And so what happened out of that situation was my student, who was the one receiving or experiencing the bullying, got suspended. And because the student bullying them was embarrassed about how badly they had gotten beaten up, they pressed charges against my student, and my student was arrested and had to go to court and is on probation until they turn 18. And the student that has been doing the bullying received absolutely no consequences whatsoever. So although my student felt that this was in their best interest, all it did was make things worse for them. So we don't want to encourage them to physically fight back because that could really cause them to get into a lot of trouble or seriously hurt themselves or possibly the other student. If parents have a child that is experiencing bullying, they should try to resist the urge to contact the other parents involved, as that can only make the situation worse. And I've seen this where parents will contact the other parents, and those parents will protect their child and say, "My child's not bullying. Your child just doesn't know, how to, handle their emotions." It just makes the thing so much more worse. So any type of contact between parents, this should be done between schools and other officials, and they need to be the ones acting as mediators and communicators between both sets of parents. So ways that we can address bullying behavior. If you know a youth is bullying, make sure you're addressing this to them in a private location. As much as we may want to call them out in front of other people to try to embarrass them, again, we're modeling bullying behavior by doing that. So although we may be upset and angry and we want to kind of retaliate ourselves to kind of make them, get a taste of their own medicine, all we're doing is just saying, "Hey, I'm bullying you and it's okay because I'm an adult." It doesn't matter if you're an adult or a child or a teen, bullying is never okay. So make sure you're being respectful and doing this in a private setting. And make sure the youth knows what the problem behavior is. Because, like I had mentioned before, if they are in these environments and this is all they've experienced and witnessed, this may be all that they know. They may have no idea that their behaviors are impacting others in such a negative way. So we also want to show youth that bullying is taken very seriously. So again, we need to model that respectful behavior when we're addressing the problem. Working with them to understand some of the reasons why are they bullying other people. Maybe they're trying to fit in, they're having issues at home, they're being abused themselves, they may be under a lot of stress or pressure, or they may have been bullied themselves. So we want to try to get to that root cause. I I like to think that, I don't I don't want to believe that a youth just wakes up and says, "I want to be a bully and be mean to other people." I like to think that there are underlying reasons and causes and issues that they are bullying. And again, I will never condone or make excuses for bullying behavior, but there's a good chance that they just may not understand. Involving the youth who bullied and making amends or repairing the situation, this can be done depending on the situation. You would have a better feel for that situation. So whether it's having them write a letter apologizing, or if it's just doing something nice for that other person. But again, I always tell people, you be the judge of that type of situation, because it may not always work out as planned. We also want to avoid strategies that don't work or they have negative consequences. I always hear about the zero tolerance policy with bullying, but research has shown that the zero tolerance policy does not really do much to help decrease bullying behavior. Because sometimes kids just don't care. They really don't care if, there's a zero tolerance. They're still going to make their own decisions. But also, it's been found that suspending and expelling youth who bully does not reduce bullying behavior. And students and school faculty are actually less likely to report and address bullying if there are those negative consequences, such as suspension and expulsion. And that could be fear of retaliation or fear of being disliked. And so sometimes that is not always helpful. When a student is bullying, that the only thing that is done is that they're suspended. Conflict resolution and peer mediation. Again, bullying is not a conflict, between two people. If there was a conflict, then that's when you would be able to have that mediation where you sit both down and they're both able to work out their own issues. And bullying, is not a disagreement. It is about having that power over somebody else. Facing youth who have bullied them, it may upset them further. So that could be re-traumatizing. If they are sat in front of that person who is bullying them, it may intimidate them. And they may be less likely to open up about what they're experiencing or how it's truly making them feel because they're going to be afraid that the person is right there listening. They may retaliate back, or they may escalate and continue that bullying behavior. Bullying behavior, oh, I just mentioned that. Sometimes people will do kind of like a group setting for students who engage in bullying. But research has also shown that that doesn't work, as members of this group typically will reinforce bullying behaviors in each other. So, when we are trying to address bullying behaviors, we need to do this individually with the person and not have it be like a group setting. So the Olvea's Bullying Prevention Program, this is a program I had such a wonderful opportunity to do a 2-day train the trainer for this program. Unfortunately, due to my schedule, I had to step back from it. But this is an evidence-based program that is nationwide and also in other countries. But the Olvea's Bullying Prevention Program offers a comprehensive approach that is school-wide, classroom, individual, and community components on ways to address bullying. So what I love about this program is it involves everybody. Everybody is on the exact same page of addressing bullying behaviors. So the program focuses on long-term change, and it creates a safe and positive school climate. And they also have done research, and this has been effective for all levels of school, so elementary, junior high, and high school. The goals of their program is to reduce and prevent bullying problems among children and improve those peer relationships at school. I'm not saying that this is going to completely eliminate the problem altogether, but it has shown to be very effective at decreasing the overall bullying incidences at schools, and also to allowing those students to, they're not all going to be best friends, but they all find a way to respect each other. So the results, again, it showed that it had reduced bullying among youth, improved the social climate of classrooms, and it also reduced any type of antisocial behavior, such as vandalism and truancy. This program is implemented in more than a dozen countries around the world, and it's in thousands of schools here in the United States. So why this program works, it focuses on the whole school environment. So like I had mentioned, everybody is on the same page. We're not only focusing on certain pieces and parts of the school, it's the whole entire school and everybody that goes to that school and works in that school. It also provides assessments to students about their bullying experiences at the school, because again, a lot of times, when we look at schools, the staff and faculty, the principals, the teachers, they are so hectic and crazy busy. They may not truly know or understand what's actually going on between some of those kids, especially if it's not being talked about, because maybe that youth is worried about talking to someone about it. So this assessment can help schools to identify what kinds of bullying and how it's impacting their school a lot better. So the program, it forms a group to support bullying prevention activities. So basically with the Olvea's bullying prevention program, there's a select group that people would find in the school, and they're kind of the cheerleaders of this bullying prevention program. So they are the ones that get trained in the Olvea's bullying prevention program by one of the trainers. And they are the ones that are responsible for putting together activities that kind of bring everybody together. And these activities that go for bullying prevention. The other really cool thing too is that all staff are trained in this program. So again, it's not just that the cheerleader group, but every single person gets training on bullying prevention. And it just really helps everybody to be on that same page on what to do, and how to address and intervene consistently and appropriately in all types of bullying situations. Because again, I've had schools where they say, one teacher will address it this way, another will address it this way. And really, one of the most important things is everybody has to be on that same page. So it establishes and enforces school rules and policies related to bullying. It involves youth on regular discussions about bullying problems. It can help them identify where adult supervision needs to be increased in schools where bullying occurs. I promise you, kids always know the places and the schools where there are not a lot of adults around, or they never see them. So there's going to be things that are happening in those areas more often than we think. It also provides ongoing support. So the trainer of this program continues that support with the cheerleader group and the school to make sure that everything is going well. And so it's just kind of a continued effort over time. It's not like a one-time done and over with. So with the Olveus Bullying Prevention Program, one thing I forgot to mention. So the state of West Virginia did receive a grant to provide this program into the schools for free. The grant was given to Marshall University, and so that is who I did the training with for the Olveus Bullying Program. So if you work in a school setting and you think that your school may be interested in this bullying prevention program, I will give you my email. It's on the last slide. You are more than welcome to reach out to me, and I will give you the contact information for those that are doing the bullying prevention program. So again, having these crisis resources is always important, not just for you as an adult, but also for our youth. So we have our crisis text hotline. You can text the word home to 741-741. I always encourage my youth to utilize these resources because they're free, it's available 24/7, and they can remain confidential. We have our suicide and crisis lifeline. I'm so grateful that they changed it to 988. It used to be this 1-800 number. And truthfully, when you're in a crisis, we're not going to remember a 1-800 number. So I'm so thankful that they changed it to 988. But their website offers lots of great resources and information on suicide and other crises. But they also provide that 24/7 crisis support as well. Stopbullying.gov. They have so many amazing resources and materials and ways to support, bullying prevention, whether it's at your house or your work or your school, or how to work with youth that are experiencing bullying. This is just a really great website that has lots of great information and resources. And then here locally in West Virginia, for crisis support, we do have Help for WV. So you can go to their website and you can talk to a crisis support worker online. You can call them over the phone, or you can also text them. They can also help with referrals for mental health and substance use concerns. So if you were to contact them and say, hey, my youth is experiencing bullying, I want to get them into therapy, this is where we live, they can search their database and help you with that referral process to get that youth into whatever service that they are needing. So these are just some resources on bullying and suicide that I used for the presentation. So again, these are all really great websites to get more information on bullying and how to, help youth who are experiencing bullying, and also helping youth who are bullying others. It takes a whole community to address this problem in this situation. This is not necessarily a one person fix. And it's going to take time. And that's important to keep in mind. So just make sure that, if you are in a setting, like a school setting, and there's lots of bullying going on, addressing that with other staff and faculty and working on ways that you can, work through that. So again, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask me now, or you can email me questions. If you would like, I will be more than happy. We will send my PowerPoint slides to you so you have this information and those resources that are available. So thank you everybody for listening and tuning in. Make sure you tune in next month for our Bullying 102. And I will let Becky talk a little bit more about the Bullying 102. So thank you.
Yeah, so Bullying 102, I'm super excited about that
Me too.
because you guys requested it. So we did Bullying 101 last year, and there were so many requests from attendees who were like, I want to know more. Like, I want more information on this particular topic. So what we did is we reached out to those attendees and we gathered a ton of questions. And Autumn's going to go through those questions and try to answer them in Bullying 102. So that's super exciting. With that, I'm going to go ahead and I've dropped it in a few times. I'm going to drop it in again, just in case you want to do it right now. The survey link for the CEUs or for this presentation is in that CEU information that I just dropped into the chat. The very last question says, do you have any comments or anything? You can actually drop your questions for Bullying 102 into that last question on the survey, and we will try to address those as well. Or you can email them directly to Autumn at the
Mhm.
email address on the screen.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, because what I plan to do is, because there's so much more to bullying that we want to know. Like an example. Well, as a parent, what if I've gone to my school and let them know that my student or my child is getting bullied, but they're not doing anything? What do I do from there? Um, so it's just there's just so much that I've heard, and I want to make sure that I can answer all of those questions for you. And so you know, I'm doing my research because I can't tell you how amazing these questions were. So yeah, if you have other things that you're like, oh, I've always wanted to know, like, what do I do in this situation or how to handle this? Please email us those questions and I'll make sure that I add that, to my presentation for next month.
Yeah, so there was one question that just popped up in the chat. That's the
Hmm.
only question I've actually seen, which is kind of amazing. Is our presentations are geared more towards youth,
Hmm.
but what about bullying adult to adult? So is that something we could kind of like touch on in the next presentation?
Absolutely. Yeah, we can definitely add something on that.
Okay,
Yeah, because that's the thing too. We just because we're adults doesn't mean that we stop experiencing bullying.
right, right.
Unfortunately.
I wish that was the
Unfortunately.
case.
Yes.
Then we could just tell
Yes.
our kids, just hold on, it gets better. But
So
um,
yeah.
yeah, so the CEUs, if you missed at the beginning of the presentation, I kind of went over how that works.
Mhm.
CEUs are offered for this webinar for social work only. We will offer a certificate of attendance for anybody else that you
Mhm.
can use those for study hours or foster care, continuing education credits. Um, I will process those, should get out by Monday.
There is also a quick question. When I had talked about if a child is experiencing bullying, we should try to minimize change to their schedule. But they had asked, well, what if the child requests this? So obviously, if a child, not obviously, but if a child is requesting a change to their routine, to their schedule, if they are the ones requesting that, then that would be okay. Because, we're kind of going back, if we were to ask them, what is going to make you feel more safe? They may say, I want out of these classes or, this or that. So if they are requesting that change, then absolutely. But if they are not requesting it and we are forcing them to make all of those changes, then to them, they may feel like, well, I'm the problem or this is my fault. And we don't want that to happen. But yeah, if they're like, yes, I would like a change to my class or my schedule, then if they're asking for it, then that would be okay.
And one more question just popped in. Do you feel like the term bullying is overused?
Mm,
It says that they have sometimes have kids who um, they're not they misuse that term, I guess. That's
yes.
how I'm understanding it.
So I have seen that. I see this more in like elementary and middle school, with the more younger children. So, they may misinterpret one thing, like maybe one thing is said to them and it's never happened or said again. Then they'll say, well, somebody's bullying me because they don't understand that bullying is repeated behaviors. Again, not saying that that mean thing said to them was okay, but there are times where bullying and that term can be overused. Uh, my group is elementary. You're correct. Yes. Yes.
I was gonna chime in there. Like my little boy will tell me, "Oh, so and so is bullying me," but it's been a one-time statement.
Hmm.
So if I actually address both children, and he's 6, so but if I address both children and I'm like the older kid that's saying something to my younger kid, I'll actually say, if you repeat this behavior, it becomes bullying. So
Hmm.
it's a point to educate, to be able to educate them on what bullying is.
Hmm. But also educating them that still saying or doing something one time is not okay
Right.
because they may get in their mind, oh, well, if I only do it once, then it's not bullying, so it's okay.
Right. You have to
So I think
explain to them, this hurts so
exactly.
and so's feelings or whatever, and it's
Yes.
not okay to keep doing that. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Kids are so precious.
It's a process.
Yes.
All right.
So yes.
There were questions about the presentation. I did already tell everybody that we would get it out to them. So I'll
Yes.
grab that from you and send that out early, probably Monday, because I think you're off tomorrow. So, um, anything else?
Yes. No, no. Just email me if anybody has any questions, concerns, anything like that. And if I don't know the answer, I will research it for you. So
All
thank you.
right. I'm going to go ahead and save this chat, and I think we're good to go.
All
Thank
right.
you
Thank
guys.
you. Bye.
Bye.